You go. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the End in Mind podcast. I'm your host, Caitlin, and I'm very excited to welcome today's guest, Chelsie. Thanks so much for being here with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Caitlin.
So, for the listeners, to give some background, Chelsie and I actually connected in the DMs. So, when I share with you all how strategy and actual socialization on Instagram can work, this is a perfect example of what can come out of one quick conversation, right? I love it.
Yes, absolutely.
That's awesome. So, can you tell us, Chelsie, a little bit about yourself and what you do and how you got into entrepreneurship?
Absolutely. So I am, as I like to say, a digital marketing coach. So I specifically help freelancers in the marketing space, all types of freelancers who are service providers, scale their business to a place where they're making income more passively. And I have been doing that for 6 years now, coaching. And the reason I got into that is because I scaled from a freelancer to an agency owner myself about 8 years ago now. Yeah.
I love it. Our timelines match up. I think that's one of the reasons why we really understand one another. And I love your story. Can you tell us like what you were doing when you first started freelancing? How did the transition work? What do you feel like you really learned in that process that helps your business owners now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I started out as a freelancer myself about 11 years ago. Specifically, I was a freelance email copywriter. Back in the day, that was rare. 11 years ago, now it's a little bit more saturated. But I got into email copywriting because I was working for a startup as a product writer for them. And because it was a startup, they grew so quickly. And I started doing all types of marketing for them, merchandising, all these different roles. And after a while, I realized I could do this for myself and do this for multiple companies, right? So, long story short, this business ended up going under. I was left unemployed, and I was like, this is a good opportunity for me to actually go out and start something of my own. So I started out as a freelancer and I did that for about a year until I realized that there is so much space for freedom in this industry. And I got very interested in the lifestyle freedom that comes from hiring people out and actually scaling in that way. So I did that, and I had not just a freedom goal lifestyle wise, but also a financial goal. So I had scaled, and it really allowed me to raise a lot of money, which I put towards law school, which is a goal I had growing up as well. And because of that, it allowed me to get the education I wanted without the student loans, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of student loans that I would have had to get. And so it was just like so much of a life changing thing for me to do. That is what led me to wanting to teach people. And sorry, I forgot the second part of your question. What was that?
No, it's great. I think it was just more so like how your experience really helps your clients, but I feel like your description, explains that entirely.
Totally. I thank you. I'm happy to hear it. And I think when I talk to a lot of people in this space, the underlying message for most people is that freedom. And also, I find a lot of people in the space are multi-passionated, as I like to call it, and they have a lot of things that they want to do with their life. And this industry helps them to be able to do that.
Yeah, exactly. The opportunities are endless. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you for asking.
Of course. Yeah. So, can you tell us? I know you have your Facebook group. I spoke inside your Facebook group. Thank you so much for having me. And a lot of your people that were able to attend at least that webinar were also in the marketing space. And do you find that marketers are, even though it is a saturated industry, as you mentioned with copywriting too, what are you seeing within that industry specifically? And do you have any tips for people that are maybe wanting to expand more inside that marketing industry?
Absolutely. Um, It's a challenging question in a sense because it does depend on where the person is and who exactly we're talking to. But I'll say some reoccurring themes that I see in the space include mindset challenges of all types, specifically imposter syndrome for a lot of people, even people who don't think that they're experiencing mindset blocks necessarily, sometimes are experiencing them. And it's it's always something that I do think needs to be looked at and reflected upon before you build anything else out in your business. Because right now you probably are the business, you know, if you're in the space, unless you have a full team and all of that. So it's really important to start out with that solid mental foundation. So one thing I really notice is people struggling with imposter syndrome. Another thing is, yes, the market is saturated, but if someone is there that wants to work with you, they will work with you and not someone else if they see the value that you can provide them. So I think it's more about positioning and how you're coming across as an authority, as someone who is different than the other people in the space, and that can actually improve their business. And that has a lot to do with, you know, the way you're showing up online and the way you're showing up on calls, and that again stems from internally, right? Do you have the confidence? Are you at least trying to pretend like you have the confidence so you can show up on those calls and people want to give you higher ticket, types of money?
It's such an interesting thing that you just mentioned about the higher ticket offers. I was doing a solo episode on this recently, and when I like scaled my agency, I'm sure you've seen this too, the sales process for a larger ticket offer started to get longer than just like working with one solopreneur. And that was a huge adjustment for me based around like how to project, how to fill my pipeline. Is that something that you help your clients with as well? That mental side of, okay, yes, it's taking longer, but I'm also walking away with a much higher paying outcome. And with marketing, it's normally a monthly reoccurring, payment.
Yeah, totally. That is definitely something that is, talked about and something that we go through. And in addition to that, I think it's really important to consider what you want to get out of your business as a whole, long term, what your vision is, because sometimes if you're starting your business or if you're not seeing the income that you feel you need or want in the moment, it's easy to react from a place of scarcity rather than um, act in accordance with the ultimate vision. And therefore, it's important to know that your numbers uh, are supposed to be consistent. That's what you do want, and it's better to make 7K a month consistently than have one really high 20K month, which can be done if you're cutting out a lot of the foundational structural things that are important for the longevity of a business. So there's a lot that goes into that. Yeah.
There's so many layers to what you assist your clients with. Like, even when I was in your Facebook group, I really resonated with the questions people were asking. And you can tell that a lot of people within your group, but also like within this space, are struggling with imposter syndrome, as you mentioned, and the money mindset side of what we deal with as entrepreneurs. What do you say to your clients when they're in a low month, and how do you help them understand the tenacity and like the grit that it takes to continue going, even when you feel like you literally can't pay for your groceries, right? Like,
Mhm.
we're normally pretty honest on the end in mind. It's like, this is real life. We have to pay for stuff. And
Mhm.
where do we turn when we need cash quickly,
Mhm.
make ends meet?
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Uh, Sorry, what is the exact question there? Is it
Yeah, just like when your clients are in a low month, right? It might not
Yeah,
be as low as like not being able to pay
yeah,
rent or something, but when we kind of hit that peak and valley, right? As you mentioned, some of those roller coasters that we go on,
totally.
how do you help your clients stay the course,
Yeah,
amidst that?
totally. Um, this is a awesome question, and if I'm talking specifically about, my clients, those peaks and valleys that you mentioned, that is something that we prepare for before they actually happen. So when someone comes and enters my orbit and I'm teaching them, the first thing we start out with is mindset. So, not to go into too many details, but my main program has what we call the modem method. It's the method that we go through so that we know that at the end of the 4-month program, you're in a place where you can make income passively. Modem stands for mindset, organization, demand, employees, and management. Mindset is first. That's where we talk about the peaks and valleys of an entrepreneur. I love that you use that terminology too, because I literally use that terminology. I put a graph on the screen that's like, this is going to be a roller coaster. Be prepared. Okay. So that when you're there, you remember that I told you this was going to happen. Additionally, we prepare in the sense that when you're not at the lowest low, you do need to do some things so that when you are there, you have some support that was provided by like from yourself. For example, one of the things that I do get my students to do in week 1 of the program is write a letter to themselves to support themselves in that low moment. So when you're at a high or even just at a middle point, writing a letter saying like, this is normal, it's okay, I know you're feeling like this, literally next week you're going to be fine, this is why you're doing this program, so that you read it and it becomes better. Yeah.
That is such a great tip. My fiance actually last week,
Yeah.
he's in sales, so he gets the roller coaster, maybe not as intensely as being,
Mhm.
self-employed, we might say, but he had his CEO reach out and he was able to complete the sale, and it was like this really long drawn out process. And the CEO sent him a very kind message. And that was exactly what I said to him. It's not a self reflection, but like almost a file, right? That you can go back to in your low moments, because sometimes it does feel like doomsday,
Mhm.
when you lose a big client out of nowhere.
Definitely, it definitely does. And to add to that, it's important to believe in what you're doing as well, not just the mission of why you're doing it, but also understand the daily actions that you're taking. You don't necessarily need to be in a course, but at least if you have a program that you invested in that you're like, okay, this works, then you have the confidence that what you are doing on a daily basis is actually moving you towards your goal. So even if you didn't invest in a program, having something, a plan that you've created that you actually genuinely believe is going to work for you is really important so that on the day to day, you can stick to that, even if your emotions are not feeling 100%.
Yeah, yeah. Because how are we all supposed to feel 100% all the time? Like, it's just not realistic. So, I
Mhm.
love that you have this really great support group. And I even stepping into that container felt like immediately loved and welcomed. And it was such a warm place to be where you can be vulnerable. And that's one of the biggest difficulties I see in these online spaces. It can feel so competitive, and it
Mhm.
doesn't feel like you can be, held during a low point.
Totally. Well, I appreciate you saying that. And I think it's really important to have those spaces. And especially when you're working fully online, trying something to create something for yourself, uh, it's isolating. Even if you have family and friends that support you, that want the best for you, that are there to listen, unless they are in the space, unless they know firsthand what you're doing, it does feel lonely. So it is really nice to have people who are in the space that you can share your feelings with, but also you can hear their challenges as well and resonate with it because everyone is going through the same thing, truly.
Yeah, even the people that make millions of dollars a month are still experiencing days like this. And I
Oh,
think that that's like a lot of online, especially. And I would love to know your perspective on this.
mhm,
Like, obviously, we both work in marketing, and a lot
mm,
of what I do, at least, is on social media. And I see people only giving the positive,
mhm.
it's starting to shift, which I love. It's taken a few
Yeah,
years to get there.
yeah,
But vulnerability is normally not a pillar of content,
no.
entrepreneurs. And how do you help your clients maybe embody that? Like, do you encourage vulnerability through their marketing, or what's your perspective there?
I do encourage vulnerability. I think that's, a common theme these days where people are saying, become more vulnerable. It's obviously not as prevalent as it should be, in my opinion. I think it's hard though to show true vulnerability online. Like, does anyone really show true 100% vulnerability? It's very difficult. Even the vulnerability that we're showing online, it's kind of like you're picking and choosing what vulnerability that is. You're positioning it in a way that is helping your business, that's making a sale, right? So it's interesting, and I think it has to do with platforms too. Like for me personally, although I'm not like we connect on Instagram, I connect with a lot of people on Instagram. By far, my favorite platform on the internet is YouTube. I love it. I think it's just fantastic in so many ways. And I think on there you can showcase a lot more vulnerability. Whereas on Instagram, on Facebook, inherently, the platform is you just choosing one, two images, two small videos for you to share. Obviously, we're not going to showcase all aspects of our life.
Oh,
Right.
I love this. This is
Yeah.
so good. Can you tell us like more about YouTube and where you find the vulnerable moments lie? Like, I'm assuming you're talking about more long term or long form film, like maybe a podcast or maybe that life blog where
Mhm.
entrepreneurs are giving like the aspects of their daily life, right? Behind the scenes.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think there's so many, it's YouTube. You can find any aspect, but even the idea of like being able to watch vlogs of people who are doing similar things as you, it helps to see what behind the scenes looks like. And obviously some people are not super vulnerable, but I think it's just a platform where you could, find more vulnerability than
Yeah,
others.
that's beautiful. Sorry to cut you off.
No,
Um,
yeah.
I'm so excited to like dig more into that platform. Like we post over there, but it's definitely not a main strategy of most of our clients, at least. Sometimes we'll have clients that prefer that platform. So I love your perspective there and like how long form film can really give you more of that, depth to someone versus like a 30-second clip. You're only getting so much. And it is very filtered, right? Like with that lens that you mentioned.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. And I think it's interesting because it does depend on your business, and what you do, but, uh, some businesses are not they don't need to be personal brands, if that makes sense. And I think it's important to know from the beginning, like, are you trying to make this a personal brand, or are you trying to make this separate from you? And because then you don't need to have your personal vulnerability on there. uh, and you could have your own separate personal brand, and that's where that could be showcased. But I think it's important to understand which route you're choosing. There's no right or wrong, but understand that at the beginning so that you can make business decisions accordingly. And just because you don't align as an individual with some of the things that you're doing business wise, it's going to be okay if you are trying to make a separate entity from yourself, if that makes sense.
That's a beautiful point and a great perspective. As somebody that I see doing this really well online, she's pretty famous now. It's the girl that developed those like hand fans. I think
Mm,
it's Remy.
okay.
Um, and she has like a personal Instagram where she posts like outfits and like to know it stuff, but she does very well over there. However, she always pairs an outfit with her fan or like
Mhm,
does her fan expertise once a week, which is like a very nice kind of funnel, right? To
mhm.
different accounts.
Totally.
Yeah. I
Yes.
feel like your perspective on this would be great. She should probably be doing a YouTube channel if she's not.
Mhm,
Oh,
mhm. Yeah.
I'd love to ask you what you think about like funnels between platforms. Or a question that I hear all the time is if you have a personal brand, should you also have a separate business account if you do want
Mm,
to be separated,
mhm. Yeah. Oh, that's, like such a juicy question. I think, so let's say you start with a personal brand, right? And then you're saying, should you have a business account from that? Um, so I think it depends on how
Yeah.
big your personal brand is, right? So if we're talking about like a large YouTuber, for example, like Emma Chamberlain, okay, she has a coffee company and she's a very big YouTuber if you don't know her. And um, she does a really good job of classifying her company as separate from herself. In a sense, I wouldn't say she's ideal because she is not a stand like her coffee company is not a standalone company compared to other coffee companies. People that like her are attracted to that coffee and then they start getting hooked because maybe it is good. But as someone who's just into coffee and not Emma Chamberlain, you're not going to go to the store and immediately pick up her bag of coffee because she's not as popular in that sense. But she had an audience to monetize like that. So I think, if you have a brand that is big enough to create a separate company is ideal because you never want to tie yourself into one product is what I typically see online or like one thing. But if your personal brand is something of services, which I know a lot of the listeners are a service-based brand, then I would say, starting a new company separate for that is not um, necessary because you can have a few different things that are tied to your brand and they evolve with you, right? So if you're a coach and you're offering these services or these courses can be improved upon every year as your mind is going to be improved upon every year as well, ideally, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. That's exactly what I think as well. And it does depend. It depends on the person, who they are, right? Like what they're selling. And there's all these aspects to it. So thank you so much for giving us like a bare minimum, right? Of where we
Yeah.
can grow. Another question that I'm just more curious about is, does everyone inside of your sphere or your community, do you encourage that they start a YouTube channel because you find that that's such a great place, to market?
Um, I do not encourage everyone to because although it's like my favorite platform, it is not an easy one. And you have to be consistent and you truly have to enjoy it to do it long term. And I think it's not uncommon for people to hear the advice like stick with one platform at the start and go really deep in that platform. And that's something I do agree with. And for me, Instagram is where I started first and where I do recommend most of my students start as well, just because that's where a lot of people hang out and where digital marketers connect. I do support my students when they say, "Hey, I want to start YouTube," because they're super passionate about video creating, or they want to sit and have a space to talk, or do it because of that. But as the primary funnel to make income at the start, no, I do not encourage that. But if you actually enjoy it, absolutely, long term, it's a great thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Because a lot of our listeners are probably like, oh my gosh, should I be on YouTube? And I think you're
Mm.
right, right? It's like timing and
Yeah.
so many hours in the day. And a lot of our listeners, are getting income elsewhere too, which I think
Mhm.
is also some of your community. So we
Mhm.
totally understand there's only so many hours, to create content.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll say with YouTube, it's kind of flashy, in a sense. It's like people want to be monetized on YouTube, but that doesn't mean that you're gonna make a ton of money. Oftentimes, we might get caught up with the fact that someone is a YouTuber, has, 10,000 views on a video, and you're like, "That's cool. I kind of want to do that. That would be great." But those are vanity metrics in the same way that if you post on Instagram and you get 10,000 likes, doesn't matter unless you got a sale or you got some leads from that. So it's really about the back end and having a system in place so that you are monetizing and collecting these people as leads.
Yeah, that's such a great topic as well in marketing where everybody's always chasing the shiny object of like going viral. And I
Mm.
used to call it the viral spiral. Like when you
Mhm.
just focus on that, you totally forget about why you actually started a business. And it can be all consuming. That's quite
Mhm.
literally why I started my agency because I saw it happening everywhere. And I'm like,
Mhm.
this is not the goal, right? This is This is not why we started this. So, thank you so much for your advice. And do you have any parting words for our listeners? And then, of course, we want to hear some of your offers, even though you mentioned a few, and where everyone can connect with you as well.
Yeah. Um, I think parting words is long pause there. Uh, Make sure you have your vision written out clearly, I would say. Um, Both your personal vision and your business vision and the mission. Make sure you know that. And I would sit down and make sure you write down where you want to be in 10 years from now. What do you want your day to day to look like in 10 years from now? Okay. And when making decisions on what to invest in, on what to build, I would make sure that those decisions are in alignment with where you actually want to be in 10 years so that you know that you're not just doing things based on, the flavor of the month or what excites you in that moment. So I think that's one thing. And another thing is I mentioned previously my modem method. I think it's a method that really works. I can't get into too many details here because I literally have a 4-month program on it. So I wouldn't even be able to tell you everything. But that framework is really good in the sense that you need to follow those types of modules in order to create a sustainable business at the end. And again, though, that's mindset. Organization, meaning cutting out all the unnecessary things, all the things that don't align with where you want to be in 10 years. And then D stands for demand, actually figuring out how you're going to get clients. There's two parts to that, in my opinion. There's actually going out hunting for clients, manually getting them, making sure you know how to sell, that people want what you have, and that you are coming across as a person of high value. And then after you master that, the second half is transitioning to a place where you are integrating funnels in your business so that those types of people are coming to you consistently. That's where the passive comes from. And a lot of people don't have that. So making sure you build that, or a lot of people just try to skip to that, but making sure that you've done that first half and you know how to come across so that you're selling higher ticket. You're not just selling low ticket. Then comes employees, contractors, hiring people out, integrating AI, and making sure you do that in a way that's not micromanaging. And then comes the final module, management. So manage this entire system once it's in place. And I recommend everyone to, follow all these modules, even if you want to be working 45 plus hours a week, because you never know what's going to happen in your life. And you don't want to be in a place where one day you have to stop working and then your business completely crumbles. So whether you want it to be a personal brand or not, it's really important to have those systems in place. So yeah, following that framework and not forgetting a piece in that system is really what I would recommend.
That's great advice. I love how your framework builds upon one another. And I also, last thing I will say is how you said jumping. I see this happen a lot with some of my clients where they're like, I just want to offer, a downloadable PDF. And
Mhm.
like, but we still need to have the community. Like, who are we
Mhm.
selling to? Right. And then we're spending all of this time building out a PDF or a course and it's crickets, right?
Mhm.
So, and that's enough to kill an entrepreneurial spirit pretty quickly, unfortunately.
Mhm.
So, for any of the listeners, if that is you, it's okay. Chelsie has obviously faced this. She can help support you and navigate you out of that situation. Don't give up hope. Your course is probably still valuable on some level, and she will
Mhm.
be able to help you scale to get to that place.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
might have just jumped over some of those steps, right?
Totally. I actually have one more thing to add that you reminded me of. I think it's really important. A good reminder is that uh, don't overthink things. Okay. If you need your first sale, if you need your third sale, okay, if you're anywhere underneath 10 and you are thinking about, oh, like, how do I price myself in the future? Oh, if someone comes to me and asks me this, like, what do I say? That's overthinking. Just go out and make a sale. Go out, present yourself confidently, be confident in the fact that you can help them do whatever it is you're saying you can, And even if you feel like at this moment you can't, be confident enough in yourself that once you close them, you will teach yourself how to do it and you will do it. Right? That's truly most people it is themselves holding they are holding themselves back when, when they're just thinking about all these different scenarios.
It's so true. Like, I'm a victim of this as well. So I think we've all been there, right, in the
Yeah,
past. And I love how you said you can solve the problem later. So provide the solution and you will figure it out because
yeah,
you're a resourceful individual if you're an entrepreneur, right? Like you can do
totally.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. I feel like you did share about your framework. Can you tell us, if you don't mind sharing your Facebook group, which I can add to the show notes below for our multitasking listeners as well? Any of Chelsea's links that she mentions next, I'll also have in the show notes and DM me, and I'm happy to connect you to her personally.
Totally. Yes, that would be great. And I will send all that information to you. I will say for the Facebook group, because we like manually filter people who are coming in, it's better for you to message me maybe on Instagram so that I can send the link directly. Yeah,
Awesome. So we'll have Chelsea's Instagram below and her website, any other information that you all may desire, more about her bio as well. Thank you so much for
yeah.
being here. This was so
You're very
lovely.
welcome. You're very. It was so nice to be here, and I'll also send you a link to a script I have because a lot of people are trying to do cold outreach. For the listeners here, I'll give it for free if they want to message me, or I'll send you the link. You can get the outreach script and the KPI tracker for that as well.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. That's so valuable. For any of the listeners, please download that or message us and we will connect you. So thanks so much, Chelsea. I'll see you soon.
Thanks, Caitlin. See you. Bye.
Bye.